Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. Looking around the globe in places that really need to have the Emerald Planet and the best practices. One of those is Nepal, a very beautiful country, ancient traditions, wonderful deep culture, fantastic people, delicious food, and someone who absolutely loves this place. This is Dr. Malcolm, goes by Mac, J. Odell Jr. He's the Evaluation Training Sustainable Development Specialist for what's called the Appreciative Planning and Action Consulting, APA, and has been working with Nepal now for almost 40 years or more than 40 years.
1962.
I tell you, that's
Count
absolutely
backwards.
Fantastic, and one of the first Peace Corps.
The first.
That ever came out of the United States, going around the globe. So looking at APA, tell us what is the mission and vision of APA, and then let's get into why Nepal.
Okay, what we're trying to do with APA is create a simplified, easy-to-use methodology for promoting and generating empowerment among local communities to take up their own development. Simplifying the development process to something that anybody can do anytime, anywhere, without taking a lot of time.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. And what you've done is absolutely fantastic, how you distilled this down to really only 3 main questions.
That's it.
And you keep repeating those questions. But looking at Nepal, we've got some absolutely fantastic images of Nepal. What are we looking at here in this mountain range?
Well, you're looking at the third pole of the world, the third pole of the world. We got the North Pole and the South Pole, but the highest peaks in the world are in the Himalayas, and it's really like a third pole for the globe.
Yeah, you know, I never really heard of that until you and I met, some years ago. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. But looking at the location of Nepal, what's unique about it, and why is it such a special place?
Well, there's no place like it on the earth, because at the lower end of Nepal along the Indian border, the Ganges River, just about sea level, and then 100 miles north to the tallest mountain in the entire world. From 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, if you will, in sports car terms. 100 miles going to 30,000 feet.
And what is the name of that mountain?
That is Mount Everest, in case you don't remember. I think you're just pulling my leg.
No, I'm not pulling your leg, because people here are watching us all over the globe.
Right.
So,
Mount Everest.
Geez, what mountain is that?
Mount Everest is the one mountain that probably most people in the world have heard of.
Yeah, but what's so special about Mount Everest? One of it you talked about its actual height. What else is so special about Mount Everest? And then let's kind of back down the mountain range, the valleys, into the floodplain of Nepal as it joins India. What's so special about all this?
What's so special about that? First of all, the environment is an incredible thing. Where else in the entire world would you see an ecosystem where across 100 miles you're going from jungle to glaciers? And you've got glaciers that are actually keeping this world safe, the climate change. Keeping ice, keeping it intact. And if we don't protect those glaciers, we're going to be in big trouble. But then you come down the mountains and you come into incredible farmlands, terraced farmlands, where on a tiny patch of land, carved out of the side of a mountain. People are raising food and feeding their families on land that we could never farm. And then you go down further to the jungles, and you've got wildlife like you can't believe, in the only country in the world that does not have any poaching of wildlife.
Yeah, and this is an incredible story. We're going to talk about that as we move forward. But tell us about the various park systems and the nature that you have in Nepal. And then we're going to get in, because we're really talking about this great Himalayan Trail project.
Right, exactly.
And joining the entire end-to-end of this country together, like the Appalachian Trail in the eastern United States,
Right.
or the Skyline Drive in Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina.
Or the great walks across the moors of England. The beauty in the trail will be that you go every day. You'll be a little lodge, a little place to stay and sleep, so you don't have to carry all your stuff. Well, anyway, we'll get to that. But Nepal has, in the lowlands, this incredible jungles, which were originally set aside as royal parks for the royal reserves for the kings and the Rana masters who ruled for several hundred years, keeping the king in sort of a house arrest, if you will. So they created these hunting reserves, which became eventually national parks. And when they did that, they got the idea that, you know, people like to come and see these parks, see the animals, and tourism took off. At the same time, other tourists began coming. They wanted to go see Everest or Annapurna. And so trekking became a very popular activity in Nepal, and communities along the trails to those two peaks began to say, hey, the trekkers are going by with all their backpacks, all their porters, all their gear, their tents, their food. Why don't, you know, maybe if I opened a tea shop, maybe they'd stop in. Maybe if I had a little restaurant, maybe, well, it just goes grassroots. Tea shop trekking became a signature of Nepal. And the beauty of it was all owned and run by the local people. No corporate Sheratons or corporate travel agencies, no American Express tour.
And we're looking at some of this right here.
Yeah.
So tell us the special nature as far as the hospitality and the hosting that one, you know, has and enjoys, which I have, from Nepalis.
Well, we as volunteers, when we went to Nepal in 1962, I think we were innocent, and we sort of thought we were going into the wilderness, going into these mountains. We got training in mountaineering and rappelling and climbing, and we got backpacks and working out and doing exercises to beat. And we went to Nepal thinking we're going to go up into these mountains and find people in hovels, you know, poor, miserable people in little hovels. We went up the hills, two-day trek to get to my village, over a big river, up a mountain. We get to the village, and it's flowers along a paved road, paved with stone, and beautiful homes, whitewashed with thatched roofs, hospitality, post office. And the post office, the mail came in on a runner who ran from Kathmandu for 10 days to bring the mail and go take the mail back. But they had clinics and schools, and I was invited to teach in a boys' high school, and I was going to teach vocational training, little vocational carpentry and skills, along with English and science. And here we are. We found we're not an outside civilization. We're right in the middle of a civilization, just a different civilization than what we're used to.
Well, looking at these villages, and we have a photograph of one of those here, is absolutely fantastic, because, I mean, it looks like suburbia, you know, somewhere around, you know, in the United States. Not really a rural area, but really suburbia.
Exactly, and there it is. And the people were so hospitable, unbelievably hospitable, you know. And we also began to learn that they knew more about any of this thing. We had nothing much to teach them. Sure, we could teach them some vocational skills and
English, of course.
And English and some science. Yes, we could do that. But for the vocational skills, I found that we couldn't find any good tools. So I looked around, I said, there's carpenters here, and there's blacksmiths here, they've got tools. Where'd they get their tools? They made them themselves. So I brought the blacksmiths and the carpenters in, and they showed us how they made their tools and taught us how to make tools. And then kids would make their little birdhouses, you know, the things. But what happened was the students and the faculty said, you just brought untouchables into our school. And you just showed our Brahmin Chetris the worth of these so-called untouchable craftsmen who had incredible skills. And that rippled down the generation. So those kind of changes were really amazing.
Going back to the mountains and Annapurna and Mount Everest, what is the significance of that as far as drawing people into Nepal and allowing this new ecotourism to really flourish in this area? And some of it calling it experiential tourism, people coming in to really experience, just like you went there for 2 years. People are coming in for 2 weeks to actually live in the village and do something.
And you probably know this. People come in and they spend 2 weeks trekking in the mountains, and they come back and their life is completely different. It's a transformational experience. Of course, it was transformational for all us Peace Corps volunteers.
Right.
And we learned to respect these people. And that was the beauty of it all, was we learned how much richness and culture and tradition and knowledge and wisdom there was in those people.
Well, the thing about this too, looking at this photograph right here, is that you learn respect for nature itself.
Yes.
Because nature, no matter what people say, you know, we got human beings, we got animals, we got plants, we got the microorganisms, those are all live, but actually nature itself is a living being.
Yes, totally.
And that's something you learn through the religion, through the culture of Nepal and other places.
And the people are totally integrated with that nature. They're totally integrated with that environment. And it's part of their life, and from morning till night, they are within it, and they also worship it, honor it with various festivals and things.
Now, looking at these mountains here, you know, people think this is incredibly hard. It is hard. I lived on a ranch, and we had, you know, we're in the mountains, and it's really tough. You know, the soil has lots of stones. It's not very easy to, you know, graze your cattle, to do all those things. And yet you're just in awe with the beauty of this.
Yeah.
So looking at this experiential tourism, this ecotourism, how is this going to mesh in with this beauty so that we don't despoil all this beauty, but allow the people to capitalize on it and still continue to honor it in a way that they know traditionally?
Well,
how do we do that?
Well, it's pretty simple. You build on what they've got, because we talk about ecotourism. Guess who invented ecotourism in Nepal? The people did, just as I mentioned earlier. They saw trekkers going by, and with their with all their backpacks and their Sherpas and their porters and their gear, and they said, why, you know, if I had a tea shop, they might stop and I could make a little money selling. And the next one says, I could have a little place where people could stay, and people would, and then another guy would say, well, I could take people out to see the wildlife, and so others would say, we got song and dance that we do. We could do a little show off some of our culture and dances and stuff. And so they started doing that.
So this is richness within the culture,
and
right?
And they did it on the route to Annapurna and Exeter, on Everest, but not anywhere else in the country.
Yeah. They've got to have all this richness there.
Yeah.
So what do you see for the growth and expansion of this ecotourism, this experiential tourism, say over the next 5, 10, or 15 years? We got about 20 seconds to do that.
Okay, first of all, everybody's seen the traffic jam on Everest. Well, the traffic jams are on their routes to Everest and Annapurna. The whole idea we're thinking is get ecotourism across the entire country, not just concentrated in these 2 hotspots, if you will.
This is Dr. Mac Odell of APA. Thank you for being with us as we're looking around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.